everyone, this is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really cute little charm ring. Now these are fun, fast, and easy, and you can put anything you want on here. I'm using beads. You could also just connect a charm. You could do whatever you like. Now I have made several different ones here. Each one is a little bit different in the way that I wrapped it, and we'll discuss that, but they all are basically the same concept. This one has long bicones, check beads, and these are really pretty. And those are new in my store if you want to try some of those. And then I put some check flower beads on this one. And on this one, I did a couple of gemstones and a crystal. Let's see if I can get him on. There we go. So you can do anything you want, and here's one on my pinky that just has a couple little crystals on it. You can do this any way you want. So you just need to have a few little beads and some head pins and some 16 gauge wire. Now I've just chosen a bunch of different little things. It depends on how big your hand is and how big you want your charms to be. You can use any size beads you want. You can do a 4mm instead of, I have some 6mm English cut crystals here. I also have a cruller check bead. I have a heart and a maple leaf, just whatever. Have some of these little golden frame oval beads. I just have a little pile. I have this little 8mm round electroplated glass bead, and you can just choose from your little pile of beads what you would like to use. I have some head pins. You can put as few or as many charms as you would like to put on. And this one I used 3. And on this one I used 2, and you can just do 1 also. On this one I used a check flower bead and a bicone. So just choose what you would like, and then we are going to need for this some 16 gauge wire. Now I don't recommend aluminum wire. Even in 16 gauge, it's too soft. We're using this heavier gauge because this way we can just wrap around our ring mandrel once, and it, with a little tiny bit of work hardening with the hammer, this keeps its shape and it keeps it very well. This is what I'm using. I'm using wire elements from Beadsmith, and you can get this on Amazon. You can also get it at Hobby Lobby, I believe. This is a really good one. It works really well. But any copper 16 gauge wire should work fine. This is tarnish resistant. It is golden tone, but it is a copper wire, a coated copper wire. So I'm going to be using that. Also, I am going to show you a little bit different type to do secondary. I'm going to do the very simple one first, and then if you want to try the second type that I show you, you will need some 24 gauge wire or 26 gauge, either one. The 24 is a little stiffer, so it's up to you, but both of these will work. Now I'm doing this in gold because I don't have any in silver tone right now. You can get it in silver and platinum tone too if you prefer that. I know a lot of people don't like the yellow gold. I like yellow gold, I always have, so that's what I'm going to use. And the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to cut myself a piece of 16 gauge wire. I'm just going to use my nylon nose pliers to straighten it out some. And you're going to need a ring mandrel, and I have this metal smooth one. It's heavy, it's a nice ring mandrel, and I can hammer on this. And if you want to make sizes, you can have one that has the sizes that you can slide it on as you're making it too. But to have one of these is really helpful because you can hammer right on this. And this I got on Amazon a few years ago, but you should be able to find these pretty easily. And a ring mandrel, a sizing ring mandrel like this too. And I'm going to be using some flat nose and round nose pliers and some chain nose pliers and a flush cutter. So that's what you're going to need to have available, and a ruler helps. I'm going to cut about 4 inches of my 18 gauge wire, and I am going to flush cut it. So the part you want to keep will be the part that you aim your flat side of your flush cutters towards. Now I'm going to flush cut the other side too, just to make sure that it's nice and cut for me. Also, a little emery board helps too, because you just want to kind of smooth where you cut on the wire, just kind of round it and smooth it a little bit, just so that you don't have any roughness on your hand when you wear your ring. So I'm just kind of smoothing that. And I will be trimming one side, probably have to do this again, but I just start by just smoothing both sides nicely. Now you can see my piece of wire isn't perfectly straight, but that's fine. As long as there's no major kinks in it, you should be okay. You're going to take your piece of wire and bring it to flush with your pliers on the lower part of your round nose pliers so that you can get a pretty good size loop. Now you can also use bail making pliers or coiling pliers, whatever you'd like to do, so you have different selections and for sizes, and you can do this many different ways. It's the same process, you can make different sizes. Okay, we've got this here, we're going to start to turn, and I'm just going to reposition my pliers and just keep turning it. So I'm just kind of bringing it around with my pliers, and it makes kind of this off teardrop shape here. And then I am going to grab my ring mandrel, and I have kind of an idea where I like to make mine. I have a pretty good size hand and I have large fingers, so I have to go pretty far down on my mandrel. You may get away with less wire if you have a small finger and you'll be working up here. I'm working down here simply because I need a good size ring. So I'm just going to bring this wire around the mandrel while holding the loop I made flush against the mandrel, and I'm just going to go all the way past the loop I made, just like this. I take this off, and then I'm going to put it back on and kind of figure out where I want it to be. So here's where you can check your size. Now this is saying it's going to be close to 8.5 to 9. I need a size 8 at least for my ring finger. So I'm making it a little bit bigger because when I draw this side through to close the ring, it's going to take some room up on my finger. So I know this is where I want to be. And once I'm here, then I'm going to just bring it down on my metal mandrel. And I'm just going to tap it lightly on the loop so I can just slightly work harden and flatten that. And I can just lightly tap the shape of my ring. Just have a chasing hammer and I'm just very lightly tapping it into shape. Then I'm going to take this extra piece here, I'm going to cut it down some because I have quite a bit left over and it's going to be hard to push it through the loop. So I'm just going to cut it down to about here. Just if you have a lot left over, you're going to cut more than I did. If you have a little left over, you're going to cut less. Now I'm going to bring this down and through the loop. So I'm just pulling it out and I'm going to push this up through my loop. And it wants to be a little bit angry and not do it. So what I have to do is just move this loop down a little bit. So I'm just going to gently move that down so I can pass this wire through. Now that I have it through the loop, I'm going to put it back on my ring mandrel and figure out my size here. Squeeze it together until I get to that size. Then I'm going to put it back on my ring mandrel, my metal one, and bring it kind of tight to that size on my ring mandrel. And you can just check this on your finger if you're just making it for yourself. You don't have to use the sizer if you don't want to. And now that I have this through, I'm going to lift this wire up. I'm going to cut it down a little bit more. And you can kind of decide how big you want this loop to be on this side. If you want it to be longer, to lay over the side more, that's fine. If you want it to be really short, that's fine too. Now I'm just going to take it off of here, and I'm going to just bend this over. Now I should have smoothed that before I did that, but I didn't, so I'll just smooth it a little bit now. And I can cut it even a little more if I'd like. So my pliers marred just a little bit, so I am going to cut it just a little bit more. On the edge here and cut it, and then I can grab my chain nose pliers and just gently bend that in. Now we're working with 16 gauge wire, so it is a little hard to manipulate, but you can do it. Just do it gently, trying not to mar your wire as you do it. I've bent this in. I just want to make sure that it's touching this side here. So leaving it a little longer will make it a little less likely to snag things while you wear it. But I have it just kind of bent over that side. And then I'm going to put it back onto my ring mandrel. And I'm just going to tap it a little bit more. And again, you can make this any way you want to make it. If you have a bigger loop, if you have this one laying over to the side of the wire, however you want to do it. This is just a basic form, and I'm just lightly tapping the top where I put it together so I don't break my wire. And I am just going to tap it around. Now this also will make your ring get bigger when you do this, so keep that in mind. But I'm just lightly tapping it. I don't want to do much because it's holding its shape very nicely. Then I can slide it on, see if it'll work. See, and that will fit me just fine. Now, I want to make some dangles. So I'm going to pick out something. I think I'm just going to do this leaf this time. Again, like I said, you can choose whatever you'd like. These turn out really cute too. But I think I'm going to try the leaf. I have a bigger hand, so I can get away with bigger beads. If you need to use smaller beads because you have a tiny hand, you can do that too. I'm just going to slide my head pin up through this little leaf, and then I am going to put my pliers right above the leaf, just like this, and push the wire over the back part of the plier. Then turn my plier from being flat and parallel to the bead mat to up and down like this. Bring the wire over the top of the plier. And then I'm going to turn my plier flat again and draw the wire underneath. Now I'm not making a great big loop. I don't want a really long loop, or a really, you know what I mean, a really wide loop. Long didn't make a lot of sense, but you know. Now I'm going to grab a hold of this with my chain nose pliers, switch hands. The wire is now underneath because I turned it over as I did that. So the long wire is underneath the wire going into the bead. I have positioned this shorter wire so that it, before I did that, so that it is the same angle as my plier and so that it's parallel to it. And then I begin to turn around the length of wire that goes down into the bead. And because of the shape of this maple leaf, I am going to go all the way down to it to tighten it onto the wire, and then I'm going to bring it back up so that my wrap is kind of high on the wrap itself. So my end of my wrap, I guess I should say. Then I'm going to cut this very close to the coiled part of the wire. And I am going to grab my crimping tool. And in the first divot, the round divot closest to the tip of the plier, I'm just gently going to push that against my coil. Try to tuck that in. Especially because this is a ring, you don't want anything that's going to snag on stuff while you wear it. So I'm going to use this one. See if I can get that on there a little bit better. And this is the hardest part. Tucking in those little ends is always the hardest part. Okay. Close enough for what we're doing right now. So there we go. Now I'm going to pick up the ring I made, and I'm going to lift my loop, my bigger loop. I'm just going to lift it up like this. Just like you would open and close a jump ring, you're just lifting that up. Slide your bead on it, and then you can close it back. Now, what I like to do a lot of times, if my loop isn't exactly how I think it should be, or I want it to be a little bit more spiraled, sometimes I'll come in and I'll flush cut the very end of this loop. This is just so you can make changes if you'd like, or if you marred the tip when you were working on it, just cut that. Then I can grab my round nose pliers and back towards the bigger part of the loop here. I'm not going on the very end of it. I'm going back towards the bigger part of the loop. I'm going to turn it. Now you see I have a little bit smaller loop and I have it tucked up tighter. So you can modify your loop any way you'd like. If you make a bigger loop to start with, you can cut it, you can go in and you can get almost a spiral. Let me see if I can show you one that I've done here. See this one, I have it a little bit more spiraled. This one, a lot more spiraled. Like this. This one, I opened it up a little wider here and wrapped my side a little bit tighter around, like a loop. Each one is going to be a little bit different. This one, you can see I brought this loop over bigger and farther. And you can see I just have a nice little simple round loop there. And you can see each one of them can be a little bit different. This one is a different style I'm going to show you how to make. But this I wrapped a little crystal on top, made a loop on the bottom, and it's also adjustable because of the openness of the ring. And I'm going to show you how to make that. But this one is now finished, unless I want to put on a couple more dangles, which I could have, but I think I just want to have this one little charm on it. And there you have it. And I hope I was in camera the whole time, but that's what that looks like, and it's really cute. So that's how you make that. And again, experiment with it. You can make your loops bigger, smaller, however you want to do. Now I'm going to cut another piece of wire and figure out what I want to put on my next one, and I'm going to show you this other style that I just showed you. So you're going to need some 24 or 26 gauge wire, and we are going to, let me see where I put it. We're going to do basically this style here. So figure out what you would like to use on it. I'm going to figure out what I'd like to use on it, and I'll be back and show you how to make one. Okay, for this style of ring, I've just decided to use a couple of crystals. These are 6mm round English cut crystals. These were in the last treasure bag, so if you have some left, you can use them. But it's not really a treasure bag tutorial, so anyway. I am going to put 2 dangles, and then I'm going to wrap one on my upper portion of my ring, and you'll know what I mean by that in just a minute. But I'm just going to show you how to wrap your dangles again. So we're just going to drop it on a head pin, place your plier right over the top of the bead, making sure there's no slack between the ball portion and the bead. Push the long length of wire over the back of your plier while holding your plier flat and parallel to the bead mat. Then turn your plier up and down like this. Bring your wire over the top, and when you're about 3/4 of the way around, just turn your plier flat again. Draw that wire right underneath the plier, just like that. Take your plier out, and then grab a pair of chain or flat nose pliers and hold onto that loop. Now, let me make sure I stay in camera, just like this. Now I'm going to switch hands, and I am then going to wrap this long portion of wire around the length of wire that goes into the bead and tighten the bead. And I want to make sure that my wire is positioned at the same angle as my plier, where I'm holding it, and parallel to it. Then I begin to turn and coil. And if your first coil goes a little low, you can scoot it up and just coil one underneath the previous one. And I'm just going to coil it all the way around. This time, I'm just going to cut my wire right at the bottom here, as close as I can. And then I will tuck that tail in the best I can. And now I have my two little dangles. Then I have cut about 4.5 inches of my 16 gauge wire. Now I did say 18 gauge once previously. We are not using 18 gauge. Sometimes my mouth just likes to say things and my brain doesn't necessarily agree. So we are using 16 gauge wire. And then we are going to take one end, so I've flush cut it, and I'm going to smooth this end a little bit, though I usually end up cutting it anyway, but I'm going to smooth it a little bit. And then I am going to go to the very bottom of my round nose pliers so I can make a decent sized loop. And just like before, we're going to turn until we can't turn anymore. Then I'm just going to bring my plier down and turn some more. I'm just kind of gently coaxing it over like this. Then I can put my plier back in and squish it down further. Now you want to make sure that that is about the same size as the crystal you're going to use. You want a little bit of space, just a tiny bit, so you can wrap your wire in there, but you want it to be, just about the same size as your bead. So if you are using a bigger bead, make a bigger loop. A smaller bead, use a smaller loop. Then I'm going to grab my mandrel just like I did before, and on the spot that I know works for me. You can certainly work on the upper part if you have a small finger. Then we're just going to hold this loop flat as we bring this wire around. And just bring it all the way around like this. And I'm just kind of squeezing it until I get it where I want it. Now you see I have this long overlapping part. I cut a little too much wire, but that's okay. I can adjust this portion here. So I'll just cut this because I think I want my loop to be about here. So I'm going to cut here. And now you can see I have a pretty substantial overlap from where my loop is, but I want this loop to end up about here, so they're a little offset. So I am going to then hold on to the bottom loop and grab the top loop and start to turn. And I still may have a little bit too much wire, so I'm going to cut a little bit more because I want my loop to end up somewhere near my other one. So I'm going to just begin to turn a loop. So I'm holding my plier here and I'm starting to turn. I'm going to turn as far as I can, and then I'm just going to start to just move it over. until I have a nice little loop like this. Now it's going to distort your ring. That's fine. Just put it back on your loop, and then you can push it down. You can squeeze it in because this is adjustable, and you can just kind of arrange your wires the way you want them to be. And you can test the size on your ring mandrel or on your finger. And that's pretty good there. Right about there. And then if I decide that this loop is too far over or too far down, I can adjust it however I want to adjust it. I can cut it a little bit, but I actually don't think that looks too bad. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Put it back on my mandrel, and I am going to just do a little hammering here. So I'm just going to flatten those slightly, work hard in the back, and make sure it's nice and straight and pretty. And I'm not hammering the heck out of it. I'm just lightly hammering to work harden it somewhat. This is what I have. Let me get you in a little closer. This is what this looks like. Now, we are going to wrap a little crystal on the top, and then we can put dangles on the bottom. This is what it looks like so far, and it fits, so that's good. So now I am going to grab some 24 gauge wire. You can use 26 also if that's what you have on hand, but I just kind of prefer the 24. It's just a little bit thicker and easier to work with. I'm going to cut about 10 inches. And it depends on how much you end up wrapping your beads, and you'll see what I mean by that also, but you can cut more or less wire. Now, I have decided that I want my crystal on this loop here, so I am going to place my wire right underneath where the loop starts, where it kind of swoops down, and I am going to put, probably 1.5 inches on this side here. And I'm just going to bring it around my loop, and I'm just going to coil it a couple times. Then I'm just going to leave that part over there. Then I'm going to push my coils together like this. And then I'm going to take the longer portion and wrap it one more time. Okay, so your coils are going to move around. That's okay. You are going to then push all of this up as close to your loop as you can get it, just like this. Then we're going to bring this wire up, and we're going to put a crystal on it. Now it's going to move around a little bit until we do our next part, so don't worry about it too much. We can keep scooting those coils. See how mine just flew? I'm going to bring it back up. I'm going to move this tail out of the way, underneath. Bring this coil up. And position my bead right on top of there. Let me get that even a little closer. There we go. So I want this wire to come right up next to the loop here. So I'm pushing my beads in as close as I can. And you can of course wrap the other direction so that you're closer to start with, but this is the way I started. Now I'm going to scoop up a bead onto my wire and let it fall right down on top here. And I'm going to hold it so I have a little bit of a gap here, and I can bring my wire in the loop, and pull it through, just like that. I'm going to take this tail and I'm going to move it out of the way. Then you can see how I'm holding it to where there's a little gap here. I'm just going to continue holding it like that, and I'm going to go through that little gap and pull a coil down. Then I'm going to position my bead the way I like it and get enough tension on it, and then pull another coil down. And I'm going to do that one more time. 3 or 4 coils should be sufficient. Then push your coils together. You can see how my coils are kind of gapped, which isn't really that important, but I want them somewhat together. So I'm just going to slide them together like this. Then I'm going to bring this excess piece of wire up and around the bottom of the bead. And I'm just going to wrap tightly around the bottom of the bead. Okay, Gina, slide over there. Just like this. Just do it slow and methodically. And then I'm going to cut my little tail wire off. And I'm going to wrap right over where that was. So I'm going right to the side of the bead, and I'm just going to wrap right over where the tail was, and just down around over that existing coil that I already put on there. Then I'll bring it around, and I'll wrap into the inside of the ring so you can see what I'm doing. And you can wrap it any way you want to. Just get it on there and see what works for you and wrap it any way you want. You don't have to do it exactly like I'm doing it. Each one I've done a little bit differently. Just as long as it looks nice, that's all that matters. So now I'm just going to coil this around the ring portion once or twice so that I can secure it and cut it off. Okay, and I can push those coils together. And that's basically what I have right there. I'm going to get you in even a little closer for a second so you can see what it looks like. And then I'm just going to cut this off. And I'm cutting it up towards the top of the ring simply because I don't want any pokey that can possibly exist there on my finger. So I'm just going to squish that down. Yeah, that feels pretty smooth. So this is what I've got now. And that can distort everything. So put it back on your wire or on your mandrel. Squish it into place. Make sure everything is arranged the way you want it. Then try it on your finger. And that's what that looks like. And I may lift this one up a little bit this way. And now that's what that looks like. Now I'm going to work on this bottom loop. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off. And I'm going to lift this little piece up. Just gently. If you can kind of put your thumb in there so you hold the shape of your ring, just gently lift that up so that there's a gap that you can drop your charms on. Of course, you can wrap this one just like you did that one too and not have any dangles and just have 2 little crystals. And that would be very pretty too. Now I've got those on there. And I think I want to make this a little bit smaller. So I'm going to adjust this loop by cutting this a little bit. And I'm going to grab my file and just kind of smooth that a little bit. Then I'm just going to grab my round nose pliers and bring this in. Until it's closed. And yeah, I like the way that looks a little bit better, though I can see the copper in my wires. So I'm going to see if I can get that closed a little tighter. So you can just lift and shimmy that wire. And of course, my pliers like to mar everything. I need to get some tipping solution for them. Plastic, wax, whatever it is, so that I can do this better. But just adjust it until you're happy with it. I'm going to bring it back behind a little. Let's see if that hurts my finger if I do that. I don't think it will. It's pretty smooth. So this is what I've got. And again, if I distorted it, I can put it back on my mandrel. With the dangles, it's a little bit harder, but you can do it. And just position it. I actually want this one to curve a little bit. There we go. Now I'm going to see what this looks like. And that's not too bad. It's kind of cute. So again, you can, with these, you can kind of squish them and adjust them how you want. This is not quite as offset as, well, it's pretty offset. It's okay. It's good. So that doesn't look too bad. And I made another one that I can show you in this style. Come on, come off of there. And my hands are a little swollen today, so it's hard to make rings and make them fit because, you know, nice stuff like that happens. All right, so we've got this one. This is the same style. You can see how I brought it down a little bit more in a swooping motion like this, and had this one more centered, so it's centered with my dangle, and I put a little check flower on there. And of course I could make something smaller if that dangle is going to bother you, but I wore a couple of these rings yesterday for quite a while. I even made a tutorial with one of them on, or two of them on, one on my pinky, and it was fine, didn't bother me. This of course is a little bit bigger dangle, so I mean, I guess it could possibly bother me after a while, but I don't know. And then I made this one for my pinky. It's cute too. So those are all the same style. And then of course I have one more here in the same style. So this one has 3 dangles on it. So you can get quite creative with these, and this one is kind of nice because it's somewhat adjustable, so if it's a little big or a little small, you can squish it and open it a little bit. So that's that. And then of course our first style here, I'll show you. I made just a whole bunch of them. Come here, you. Oh, that's why, because it's upside down. Okay, so I made a whole bunch of them. I think this little check bead, or this little check leaf one is really cute too. Very simple, and I like that. And again, you can put anything on them that you want. This one has some agate, crackle agate gemstones on it. So you can do this any way you would like. And here's another one. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.